Hi, I'm Carm Taglia with Roofing of Marketing on my podcast, Top Three Roofers. I just want to introduce James Peel. He's at Longboat Key Roofing out in the Metro Sarasota, Longboat Key area. You're not just an asphalt shingle guy. You're out there in a premium, probably one of the best markets in Florida. Like, what's that market like?
Well, super competitive because everybody wants to live here. So every time, the last 3 years have been brutal because all these storms blew in and hit the air. Like usually they would spin south, spin north, and the uh, the storm chaser traffic would be minimal. It would be on the outskirts. It'd be south of, say, Venice, which is south of us by about 30 minutes. It'd be north of us, north of Tampa. So the area wouldn't get infected with the storm chasers and the pop-up tent companies, I guess. But when those storms started hitting, there's several companies that come in and tried to stake their claim to the market, and you've got a bunch of guys that are bigger that have been here forever that now they're fighting for that market share. And then you got guys like me who started up 8, 9 years ago. One of my biggest competitors downtown, and we've made it, but I don't know how everybody else is doing because the market's saturated right now. I know we're doing fine because we sold a referral only company. We're just now, as you know, doing a little bit of marketing and tweaking things, but our competition is they're struggling right now because the hurricane work dried up. We had a really dry season. So if it doesn't rain down here in the summer like it did this year, most no, not even a tropical storm, really any rain, people because it's tile roofing is king down here. Most of these neighborhoods have big tile roofs.
Yeah.
Talking 40, 50, 60, $70,000 contracts for 3,000 square foot homes. So if you don't get any rain, they don't have major problems. They're like, if that can to next winter, hopefully, they'll take as many years as they can get. And for good reason. They were told these roofs are going to last 30 years. And the way they put them on 20 years ago, they only make it 20. Like they're only going 20, 25 years max. And having
Yeah.
multiple problems and leaks and repairs done in the interim, from new to 20 years. The tile market is king. It's 90% of the work I do.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about, your background, your origin, how you got into the roofing game.
Yeah, it was just rough, really. Back in the 2007-8 market crash, that time I was doing basement remodeling because before
Mhm.
that, people were taking equity in their homes. They're refinancing back when the mortgage boom was happening. And I've been in like remodeling sales my whole career up to that point. And so I was doing basement remodeling which was a pretty good gig until the GFS happened, the Great Financial Crisis or whatever, GFC, whatever they call it. And so the basement finishing kind of took a nosedive. And so the guy who got into that I was working with, his name was Mark, and he actually before that had owned a roofing company. And so
Okay.
and he built it up. And now what's funny is they're owned by one of the guy who took that over. It's one of the
Mhm.
biggest residential roofers in the market. Weird story there. So he started up another roofing company kind of as a side gig. Basement stuff was falling apart. He was like, we had a really good relationship. He's like, you should look at roofing. I think you'd be really good at it because it's a need-based product. You're not a typical sales guy. As a matter of fact, he knew me. I was anti-sales. So everything I did I was a go-back salesperson. So instead of pressuring people the first night, I was one of the only guys who could walk into offices with contracts a week later. And they're like, how do you do that? I was like, well, if we instill the confidence in our product and what we believe in is good enough, people let me develop that relationship and come back later and sign a contract. That kind of was the start of my uh, developing that. Just naturally, that became something that worked, and that's how I got into roofing. And then I was in and out of roofing for several years after that. So I learned from him. We had a small operation. Then I worked for a storm roofer for a while there in
Mm.
Indianapolis, which is where I'm from. And then hated that. Hated that.
That's brutal. Yeah, that's a very brutal segment of roofing, right?
If you're in it for money only and you want to do that hustle, it's great. But it's the end product with the subs and just, picking up and moving around. Like, I didn't want to do that. And so I kind of got out of that. And then for whatever reason, I was like, I'm not a roofer. So like, that's like when clients ask me or they go, oh man, that's really hot work. I don't know how you do it. I'm like, I don't like, I am honest with people and say, look, I've done some stuff to like get my hands dirty, like some repairs and like mess with the guys or whatever, just kind of get an idea.
Mhm.
I didn't come from that. I came from sales, management, estimation background. But the difference is 95% of the guys that come from that background, it's all about money. For me, I would just look around and go, like, man, you know, it's really hard work. People need it. Just, I always felt for the workers. I just like look at the money and be like, you know, they're only making that much for to do this, and they're paying me 10% commission on this contract. Like, seems kind of backwards. And you know, and then just clients.
Mhm.
Because I would instill so much confidence coming back to me and crying and moaning about their experience of not being great or leak here, leak there. Like, you know, if we're doing this, I mean, roofing's not rocket science. If you're doing it right, you get the occasional bad product, does it seal off, but it should be done the same way every time. There shouldn't be different crews doing different things, the different leaks and problems here or there. So that's probably why I got out for a long time, for not a long time, but in and out for several years is just I could never make the production side match what I believe the sales side should be, where it all just combined into one great product and service. There's a lot more between then and now, obviously, still, because I moved to Florida and helped the guy build his business here and all that stuff. But yeah, it's a long story. But I go on these other streets where the companies they're calling now that did that work are getting all
Mhm.
kinds of business because people don't know what they're missing out on quality work. They just see their trucks up and down the street, and that's all they know. But the streets I get on, people will be like, I walk my neighborhood every day. I see what these other companies are doing, and what you guys are doing is incredibly different. Just in the fact that your guy, the supervisor, gets out of the truck, eats the homeowner in the morning, walks the property with them, and says, hey, James sent you my number. Here's my card. Call me if you're coming out of the house, we're working on tile. Call me first. I'll call the guys and make sure to stop the work so you can get out of your house, get to the street, get to your car.
Mhm.
Versus people, you know, are just like my neighbors are all complaining because they come out and nobody's listening to them. No one speaks English. No one, they don't have anybody to talk to. The supervisor, all he's doing really is just picking up trailers of tile and hauling them off. He's not really like my guys getting on the roof, checking the details, talking to the homeowner. Hey, by the way, come here. You've got a wall that's falling apart above our flashing. We're going to have to cut this thing out, or else you're going to call us in 10 years when that wall falls apart and the water's going to get behind the stucco behind our flashing. You're going to call a roof leak, the break come out through a snot. You're going to get mad. It's going to become this whole thing. Everybody's going to waste a bunch of money, or, you know, one of us is going to have to give up. And you, the homeowner, realize you're wrong, or I spend all that money for what? I could just fix it for half that. I don't want to get into those fights. So we're going to show you and take care of it up front. We're not just trying to plow through the house to the next one, to the next one, just to make money. And I'm pretty passionate about this, as you see, so I can get way off on tangents, but I'm bringing it
No,
back
that's okay.
to the equity thing, which is all these decisions are made around money. It's how can I get the most money and be done versus I don't have that concept. I've come from nothing. I've had zero before several times in my bank account. I don't care
Mhm.
about money. Money is a byproduct of what I do so I can get by, but I want to be happy. And I want to be able to look people in the eyes and know that, you know, they're now like a friend of our company. I can't tell you how many emails I get from people where we've done their roof 2, 3, 4 years ago. And they're like, I talked to the lady down the street. I think you've been talking to her, Carolyn. I told her
Mhm.
how great you guys are. And, you know, like, and they're like emailing me just to tell me like they're still in the game trying to, you know, how we still, you know, they'll tell them like, I still communicate with James. They didn't just come do my roof and disappear. Like I email him all the time. I say Merry Christmas, ask him how he's doing, you know, like my email's crazy. I have that. It's nonstop. Every time I go into a house and clients like, oh, I'm like, one of the reasons you got referred to us, why people are, you know, still be like, oh, everybody talks highly of you guys. I'm like, well, that's because I have my own guys. And
Yeah.
I'm like, everybody knows them. And when we start a project, like if you're coming to me, it's something really bad. Most of the time you're just asking me when do I need a check? When's the next part of the process done? You know, because my guys are so good at taking care of them, the people like them a lot. So, but I'll go into appointments and I'll be like, oh yeah, they've been working in this neighborhood forever. They told us they don't use subs either. And I'm like, okay, I know those guys that they're using. Some of those guys were kicked off crews that my guys didn't like, you know, I know who they're working for because they show up to my door asking for work on them. So that's the thing. Like roofing is such a tight knit industry as far as like the people who are good.
Mhm.
and the people who will do the work, right? So we have you see these same guys circulating in and out all the time, coming and asking for work. Well, I was working over here, they dried up, so I went over here. They're down for 2 weeks, so now I'm back over here, and we'd like to come work for you. They don't want to come in, no pun intended. They don't want to come in and work under your roof. They want to control their own thing.
Yeah.
Therefore, they want to be able to leave when they make mistakes or screw up, versus you having your thumb on the work and making sure that they are doing whatever, and like I've went through a lot of heartache and pain for the last 9 years to get where I am now. Like I've had to go back and fix a lot of work where it shouldn't have been a problem, but you have bad apples here and there that have to get weeded out. We're on our third and fourth supervisors from when I started. The guys we got now, like everybody's under, they know that one day they're going to own the company. Like that's part of the other thing too, is I want my guys to own the company one day. On the street, where we've done like 6 or 7 homes on the street, everybody's super happy. We did this job in the heat of the summer. We're talking like June. Now
Okay.
it's 95, 100% humidity on the roof. That temperature is 140 Kelvin. So yeah, and so those guys and my guys, I tell them, I would rather have you take more breaks, take a break every hour and a half or whatever, get down, get with shade. Like there's nowhere for them to go. They don't go to these people inside their lanai cage and sit by the pool. They find a palm tree or something out in the front of the house or on the side, and they lay there and they let themselves cool down. They let their shirts that are all sweaty and wet, it cool on the roof. That's like having a natural cooling system. So I'm talking to this guy, and he starts, you did my neighbor's house 2 doors down. You did this one right here in the middle. He did one 2 doors down. And he's like, your guys, he goes, your guys are taking all these breaks. Just laying under palm trees and stuff. And I'm like, what's the problem? He's like, "I'm supposed to do work." And I forget what he said, but I'm like, sir, he's like, oh, no. I was like, look, I would rather them take breaks than fall off the roof from heat exhaustion and die.
Oh yeah, man.
Right.
Like that's real. Like you die from heat exhaustion. You die from dehydration.
Yeah.
You die from sun exposure.
Yeah.
You don't die from taking a break. You don't,
Yeah. Oh no, he didn't like it.
Your own guys.
To him, that was unprofessional. He was like, I was like, sir, I drive around town. You see other roofing guys or whatever. I was like, very common to see them taking breaks under palm trees in the shade, so their bodies will cool down, and so their shirts to sweat and get cooler, so they can get back up, and they've got like a pool sweating until it dries again, and they sweat a bunch. That's a guy I'm never going to get. So Tom also sent me an email where Tom says he's happy. I don't need to know what's wrong with this building structural. I can look at it and go, you guys got a problem here. They're not just worried about the roof, but I'd call this guy and talk to him about it. What are you seeing? I just know from my prior experience, you've got some kind of structural issue. I'm not a GC.
Yes.
I don't have the knowledge to really, but I've been in enough situations that you've got a problem over there. So I'm just telling you, you can ignore it if you want. Maybe call these people, talk to them.
It's good to have relationships like that too. I'm sure you have so many really good relationships with like GCs and other exterior guys, because you only do so much, right? And it's nice to have that and take that off your plate as well.
Well, that's how we got our stucco guy. Our stucco guy, like he doesn't even do residential. I'm the only guy who does any residential work for. He does all commercial, except for someone introduced me to him, and we're now really good friends. I was like, man, I met with him on the site on a big apartment building, and you guys did that building over there. And that guy works incredible. Like most of these stucco jobs I go see things, these buildings, I see cracks or bubbles or problems. I'm like, your work's amazing. I'm like, man, I've got this house. This is way back when I first started, right? I'm like, the wall's crumbling. We found stucco issues. Like, I got to cut the wall out. I need someone to come fix it. And he did it for me. And we became friends. And like, he was like, man, you guys really care about your work, don't you? And I was like, yeah. I mean, I was naive back then. I'm like, does everybody? This is kind of where I first started really learning people we just don't care. And he's like, I like your guys. They're respectful to me. Most times if I'm around roofers, they're nasty with me, I'm giving them away or they're accusing me, and he's like, you guys are super nice and sweet. And he's like, I'll tell you what, I don't do residential. I know you were hooked up to the neutral friend, but if you have any more of these issues, I'm your guy. We'll jump off on the side and roll this for you. Well, guess what? He is now like one of my superpowers, because 3 out of every 4 homes that we open up, we find all kinds of
Mhm.
wall flashing issues where the roofers just put a metal on top with a caulk bead on it, which is in the code. It's called counter flashing, which they're not even sinking it. They're putting the metal and then putting caulk. It's not a 25-year roof case, but they're doing it.
Yeah.
We cut the wall out, we flash it behind, put the new paper on, put the new flashing in, put the new waterproofing on. So we've sandwiched the metal. Stucco guy comes in, finishes stucco back, and we've now permanently fixed that wall. And when people see us
Nice.
doing that, um, they're just like, wow, I haven't seen anybody doing that in this neighborhood. What are you doing? So it's like a superpowers. You're like, yeah, we're finding that these issues, we're fixing them. None of these other roofers, they don't have a stucco guy. The subs, they
Yeah.
can't tell their subs, hey, stop, cut this wall out. They don't want to stop them because the subs, they just want to hurry up and get in and out and make the money.
That's very unique, that you actually have that and are able to do that, whereas other people not,
That was just built from just trying to do things the right way. That's what the guys like. I've never had a roofer try to call me and help him with a wall on a house. It's like 4 feet of wall. There's nothing. Like, I just want to fix this the right way. Stucco is like 2 trips. Not, you can't just go out there one day and fix it. You got to send guys out. You got to set the wall. You got to put your scratch coat on, and you got to come back later and you're finished. So,
Yeah. And that held up your job, I assume, right? So it's like
yes.
you're adding time to the job, which cuts into your margin, but you'll do it for the customers. That says that you really do care. You know what I mean? Like you're not making any more money off of this. You're actually taking a little bit away because now you're adding time to the job. You know
And
what I
I
mean?
have to explain myself to neighbors all the time when they sit down with me and go, well, I walked around the corner and this company was in and out and bam, you guys I saw over here, you guys stopped for 4 days. And I saw a
Mhm.
couple guys out there working by this wall, but you weren't loading the tile, you weren't installing, and they see it as a bad thing, right? And because they think that quicker is better. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, no, no, no. This is what we had to do. This is why we had to stop at that point and let the stucco guy finish his work. So then I can have the tile loaders come in and get the tile on the roof. People will go, they'll see streaks, which is called efflorescence coming out of the mortar on the tile.
Okay.
And they'll see that. Then they'll also, they'll be like, well, I see like your roofs, they don't have a lot of the streaking, but this other company, look at this streaking that's in the mortar. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, I was like, so the other day we had to stop this job down here. We could have set mortar in the morning and walked away and then finished it today, but we didn't do any mortar work that day because there was rain in the forecast. So if
Mhm.
we set that mortar and then it rains on it within 4 or 5 hours later, it's going to cause it efflorescence because the atmospheric pressure to come out quicker and much more pronounced. So a smart company with skilled guys check the weather and they don't start that aspect because it's like, hey guys, we're not, if we do this and a customer complains, we're at the point now where I'm not going to fight them over the efflorescence, which it's not our fault. I'm going to
Sure.
send you guys back out with cleaner. I'm going to make you clean all this white off. So
Mhm.
we can either find you a little repair or you can take a day off with your family, but we're not
Mhm.
doing the work that day because we don't want this problem to happen. And then I had to explain to people like why we stopped, because they just think we didn't show up for work then.
Yeah.
It rained at 3 o'clock. Why weren't you there working until like 2? So you can see how when you see people just running around slapping stuff up, that's what people see. They see roofs being slapped up real quick and moving on. I mean, who better to care? That's the thing. People, I just had this question yesterday. No, yesterday, 2 days ago, Tuesday. Lady's like, well, so your warranty, what if you go out of business? And I said, yeah. She's like, well, what happens to that 20 warranty? Same with any company. That warranty's null and void if I'd be out of business. And she's just kind of dead hand staring at me. I got asked that same question 9 years ago when I started the company and told people like, look, do you see any reason why I would go out of business doing business the way I'm doing it with the guys that I've had?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, and they're from Indiana, which is funny. We found that out during that part of the conversation. Like, I'm from Indiana too. I have different values. I'm like, I'm not from Florida. I was just brought up a little different about, just honoring your word and quality of workmanship and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I told him, I said, you've heard about Lucas and Ivan and my other guys, right? She said, oh, yeah, yeah. The neighbors rave about it. I'm like, yeah. I was like, well, I want them to own it. I want them to take over the company. I don't have children I'm going to turn this thing over to who never even looked at a spreadsheet before about roofing. And now they're going to get the company. But it's going to be the guys who actually had their hands in the game doing these roofs that then carry it on for the rest of the neighbors in the future. Like, they're the future.
Yeah.
She got it. I'm like, that's the kind of people I want to turn. I get approached about selling this company all the time. It's not going to happen. Well, people, in my opinion, in this market, with a relatively high retired baby boomer, have
Mm-hmm.
some decent money market. They're either making their buying decision one of two ways. They're either scared to put their good money into something bad,
Mm-hmm.
or it's price. They're just willing to take the risk. And this happens a lot too. I'll have people who haven't hired me for a $2,000 difference. Well, knowing when I show them the difference between my guys and what we're going to do, they know they're going to get probably an inferior product, but they're going to roll the dice and pay for that 2,000 later. And they're just, they think they're smarter than it, and they're going to bend that company to their will and get the work but they don't know what they're doing at first. So how are you going to do that? Or they won't even ask, they know I'm so confident in what we do. They won't even ask me, well, can you do it for the 2,000 less? Because most time I say no, obviously. But,
Yeah.
and then I sound like, what do you want me to get rid of? You want me to get rid of the supervisor on job? Yeah, I can do it. If you're okay with my guys coming here and all we do is haul the trailers and I can send them somewhere else to do some work for me, sure. Well,
Yeah,
no,
I mean, not only is it like a corner, sometimes there's not a corner to cut. Like it's so lean. It's so you can't do the job for that money or that job that, scope of the work that they're doing is
there
probably
is
nothing
if
near.
you sub the work out. If you sub the work out, you can call the next cheapest stuff you got because you just care about them to hire you to pay you a paycheck. That happens a lot. If I was, I mean, there's, like I said, I could be twice the size I am right now if I did what everybody else is doing. I could easily, I can't, I mean, I can't tell how many people stop by my door that want to sub and like, I can beat the next guy's price. I could just roll all those guys, like I said, into a roll dice. Most people don't know what that is anymore, but I could have that, flip that thing open and find the guy who just came in and told me he could do it for $10 a square less. And now I've saved that $2,000. I make
Yeah.
the same money. You can either give it to the small guy who's doing stuff in your community and he lives in a house that costs less than yours,
Hmm.
right? But he needs this work, or you can just keep feeding a machine that,
Doesn't care. Yeah, they
your
don't
money's
care.
going to go through 10 different hands before it ever gets to the top of that organization anyway. So
Hmm.
what do they care about you really? But this guy, how you're handing a check to is the guy who actually runs the companies. He's going to be a
Yeah.
little more grateful, a little more on the ball with the
But
project.
that means a lot, right? I mean, it means a lot to that
Yeah.
person.
And like I said, it's not that the other company doesn't do good work or whatever, but I'm saying people have to recognize more that you can't just keep feeding the machines. You have to take a look at companies that are smaller and not discredit them because they only started 5 years ago, whatever. Like when I first
Hmm.
started, I didn't get a lot because my referrals are so strong, people didn't care. But well, what if you got a business? Most of you guys don't last more than whatever,
Yeah.
2-3 years.
Hmm.
But you've heard my answer. What you see of me and what you see of the way I operate things, what makes you think that we're someone who might got a business? Don't you think it might be the other way around, where I see people with tons of overhead running these big machines, all of a sudden all of a sudden all these lawsuits and the gears just stop because the machine's so big that once a gear gets clogged up, like the whole thing starts falling apart. The people know, like if they send me an email or they call me and leave me a message or whatever, I'm going to get back to them. They don't just become a number. And
Hmm.
they're really impressed when they go in. This is killing me to a fault in some ways, but like like the street runner now I was talking about, like I remember every single one of them by name. So when they say, "Oh, down there you did this tannish whatever color," I'm like, "Oh, that was Rose's home, and he did blah blah blah, and it was a Westlake tile, and it was this color. You like that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that is Rouse." I don't know. I try to treat people like family. I'm not gonna remember everything about everybody, but I have that kind of brain. Like I have like a semi-photographic brain where if I'm concentrating on something, it soars away. It's great when you're working with customers because they seem to care because you remember exactly what's going on with all their neighbors. They're like, "Oh
Hmm.
yeah, how did you know their son got a soccer award?" And it's like, "Well, because I've been working here for 3 years and I see them every couple months, and we talk."
If I'm a homeowner on the ground level, how do I really know what's up with my roof outside of it
You don't.
leaking in the living room, right?
You don't. I tell them I don't either. I can't see through your wood. I don't have X-ray vision. Neither do you. So when they ask me how long's it got, I don't know. So for instance, we've done a lot of this. Oh, well, I'll tell someone, look, I don't know.
Hmm.
I'll give you my experience though. Your roof's 23 years old. Let's give an example. Your roof's 23 years old. I know the way they built them back 23 years ago. They used XYZ material. They fastened that material this way. The
Mhm.
kind of crews that came into this neighborhood with this builder were either poor, medium, or excellent quality, right? So let's say they
Mhm.
were medium. I can just say that I can pretty much like at this age tell them like you have or the homeowner before you had this home has already put repairs into this roof. Well, half the time they're like, oh yeah, we did a repair from 10 years ago in the valley. We had that little valley replaced. You know, they're like, now we've got this leak over here, or we see these spots coming in, you know. So I'm like, well, here's what we can do. You know, I'm going to give you a cost to repair it. It's possible that the material here might be good enough to where you can get by for a few more years. We just want to do that repair. Keep in mind, since I've been doing this, prices have not gone down. They keep going up.
Oh yeah.
If you're gonna, you have to weigh that balance of if you're gonna wait for 3 more years, you're gonna pay more anyways. But let's start with repair. When we open it up and we see what's there, my guys will come down and show you pictures so you can see with your very own eyeballs what's going on.
Mhm.
And then from there, you and I can have a more serious conversation about do we replace or do we just do this repair and hold on. So we
Mhm.
do a lot of those. Uh, I call cleans, repair to re-roof, and then what I do for them. So it's transparency, right? So I don't
Yeah.
come back later after I've done the repair and give them the quote for the roof. They have no, because then they have no idea. Did I give them did I give them some repair costs back? No,
Mhm.
I do it up front. If I could charge you today for a re-roof, that's what we're charging. You're to charge for the repair. And look, I can't just give you a full credit of your repair back. I got to pay the guys and to pay the taxes, insurance, and material to do that repair. And we're gonna have to redo it when we do the re-roof, but I'll give you everything back on it. I'll give you like 60, 70% of it back, right? We're not going to take any profit or overhead or anything like that. So we'll deduct what you paid off the contract. But they already have the number. So they know I'm not playing games with them, right? Like they have
Yep.
the number already. So they know, hey, we just paid you $1,800 for repair. You told us you give us $1,500 or you give us, a credit towards our re-roof. We come back later of 850, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
And so we just take that off the contract, give them that credit for what it's done on repair because now they want to do the re-roof. And I'll do that up to like a year or two.
Yep.
So, once the price is dramatically changed, I'll explain to them like, look, hurricane just hit, they raised the price on this material. I'm doing it differently in the fact that it's not an easy answer when you say, how long did I have for my roof to last?
Oh yeah.
I don't know. You got to open it up.
That's a great, like, tool right there. You know, taking that money that you're putting into a repair, obviously, like you said, I've got to feed, my guys, putting that into the cost of re-roofing. That's pretty good. I mean, it shows that you believe in your work, you believe in the re-roof in itself, and you believe in the repairs that you're making. You're not out there to make garbage repairs. Yeah. Put band-aids on things because that's only going to cut into your profit margin when you do sell the re-roof. It's got to be a huge trust factor with your people too.
I just instinctively, because I've been doing this for so long, when someone goes from like a tannish brown roof and brown trims on their house, they start with
Yeah,
the roof and then they like paint their house and all their trims like match that contrast.
sure.
And so his old gutters and drip edge and stuff was brown, but the only thing that matches that is a tan roof or a dark brown roof.
Mm.
And he did the opposite. And so I didn't even think. And so this guy last night and he was apologizing to me at the end. He's like, I'm sorry, we didn't, and I was like, no, I was like, I see what you're saying. I was like, I just thought you were going to change your house. Like I had no idea. You now want a brown drip edge and all these brown accents left on your home, and you're going to have
Yeah.
a light charcoal color roof. Like brown and charcoal don't match. I was like, we'll tear it out and redo it for you. I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't even think. But
Yeah.
that's going to cost me money. That happened literally last night, and it's one of those dumb things where you get, we're kind of rolling on autopilot for the most part because everybody's just kicking butt. It's those little
Yeah.
things as the employee ownership thing. I'm getting
Yeah.
ready to take over the company from my silent partners
Hmm.
here soon. So like when we started, because the person I used to work with, we could not rely on them to sign off on my experience for validation. So my
Hmm.
partners had to get the license and set me up. Now I've run the company since day one. I'm the one who controls all the purse strings and everything behind the scenes. But
Yeah.
my new guy who's been here for 3.5 years now has worked his butt off. Name's Lucas, everybody knows him. He's going to be our license holder, and him and I are going to take over the company 100%. So that's eventually him and a couple others. I'll phase out through a certain percentage and oversee, but then they'll be Yeah, I mean, it's like there's a big story behind that because I have two partners right now who are signed. Who, if you pull up our stuff, are the actual owners.
Mhm.
Everybody knows me as the owner because I basically, but there's story behind that. You know what I'm saying?
Big That's a big fire right now in the roofing industry is private equity coming in and gobbling up
Like,
these mom and pops where the kids don't want the companies anymore or they're just looking to cash out. How do you feel about private equity?
my whole thing is, I think people are starting to recognize culturally, big time, that um, bigger isn't better. Like I said, they're starting to realize that like a lot of the functions of just things getting out of control is basically because and look, capitalism is great.
Yeah.
I'm all for it, right? Like I'm definitely not on the other side that says everybody should just be getting government handouts and other people just work as slaves. Like I want people to rise up and take it. The problem is, what do you do about the monopolization of all these industries? Like that's the problem. I think people are starting to wake up to the fact, like we are here, and my guys believe it too. I'm like, we're not guys, we're not trying to be the biggest company. Like right now, we've been doing 4 to 5 million a year. It's our sweet spot. We get no matter how nervous I get when things slow down, no matter how great things look when they speed up, we always end up somewhere between 4.5 to 5.5, almost 6 million, right? And it does not change anything for the guys I have. They're all paid very well. They're all very happy. Last few years incremental increases right in the pay, but we're not like unnecessarily trying to go out and scale and get this. Oh, I'm gonna get these other markets or whatever. I just want to break into some new areas that people haven't heard of me, so I can get on the streets like I am in Lakewood Ranch right now, where we get on the street. We're on two of them right now, where we were one of the first three houses done, and now those streets, we're up at 10, 20 houses. Why am I doing things the way I do them? Are we really can find people that'll see things the way I do? A young guy, Lucas, who I have now, actually would be a great showcase because he's the one everybody loves. Most of the
Yeah.
clients, they don't hate me, but they don't like me because I'm just too nuts and bolts and I'm just tell you how it is. But like he's the one everybody loves.
Yeah.
He knows a lot and super sweet, nice. He's young, got energy, like he's the future, but it took a long time to get there. You know what I mean? So that's why we're at where we're at. Now it's like the natural progression of like, okay, I've got someone who I can partner with, kind of like my partners knew that they could just fund me, start it up, and then get out of the way and let me go. I've got someone I
Mhm.
can build with and then eventually let him go.